Hello, everybody. It is May 6th, 2021. I'm John Cruz with the APA St. Louis Metro section, and I am joined today by Sean Thomas. And Sean, I'd like to give you the opportunity now to introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about, who are you and what do you do?
All right, thank you, John. Well, I am a native St. Louisan, and I have been interested in community development from my earliest stages, having grown up in the city during a time when the population was declining. It hasn't quite changed in my lifetime, but nevertheless, it was declining. I was witnessing neighbors move away and became very interested in the concept of what it takes to keep people and maintain community from that earliest stages, which led me to pursue political science degree. I went down to San Antonio to work to go to college in a city that was very different from St. Louis. Wonderful sunny weather, nice warm weather, which we only get to experience in the summer months here in a really, really bad way. But San Antonio was a wonderful city to live in with great culture and great experiences. But then I took that political science degree and went to yet another dramatically different place from there to Detroit, and worked in Detroit for a couple years. Initially as a community organizer through more of kind of the volunteer organization, but stayed with that organization for a while and then came back to St. Louis specifically because I was curious about how to change the world and get a better understanding of the bigger and larger forces that were shaping communities, especially urban core communities, and got a master's in public administration from St. Louis University, and got straight back into the world of community organizing from there, and went straight to an organization called the St. Louis Association of Community Organizations, SLACO, which was a coalition of neighborhood groups, which was one of my first lessons there, is that community organizing works better when it's part of a broader network rather than an isolated, solitary community trying to do it on their own. And I'm just diving straight into my whole career path, if that's okay with you. That's part of
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
But that's what got me back here to St. Louis, was grad school, and then that world of community organizing at SLACO, where I worked for several years. And by the time I had reached 5 years on that job, my wife and I had started a family and had 2 small children. My wife was interested in me having an income that was better than a community organizer salary, and interested in my not being out at neighborhood meetings every night of the week almost. So I found another opportunity at East West Gateway for 1 year. East West Gateway as the Regional Council of Governments, regional planning organization. And that was a good experience as a community initiatives coordinator, but luckily for me, SLACO had a restructuring and new sources of funding that invited me back to be the deputy director there for another 5 years or so, or 6 years, when I had a chance to explore an opportunity in the Old North St. Louis neighborhood, and became the executive director there in 2003, and did that for about 15, 16 years, no, sorry, 13 years working there. And then after many years on that treadmill of raising funds and trying to maintain a small nonprofit organization, I took advantage of the opportunity to start my own consulting work, and had the pleasure of working with other consultants on a variety of projects. The unfortunate thing for me was that I was specializing in small nonprofits that didn't have resources to pay me. So when I got another opportunity after that to go to work at St. Louis Development Corporation just at the beginning of 2020, I jumped at that opportunity, especially because my current job as the program manager for the PropNS program means I had the opportunity to start up and get fully implemented a program that I'd helped get on the ballot. It was based on funding from a bond issue. And when I was working as a consultant, I was able to work with some grassroots community groups in getting that issue on the ballot, and then helping make the case to community groups throughout the city that it's worth passing this. And it was successful at the ballot, and now is a fully funded program at St. Louis Development Corporation with the focus of stabilizing, securing, and selling city-owned residential properties that are vacant.
Of course. No, that's really cool stuff. Can you talk a little bit about what the day-to-day is doing this kind of work? I get the feeling from a lot of people that there was a lot of like discussion around what it was and what it was going to be as the ballot initiative was working towards passing. And then after that, it was a little bit more kind of up in the air from the layman's perspective. So can you give us an idea as far as like what your typical projects are or what the sort of initiatives are that are kind of ongoing day to day?
Yeah, and the current responsibilities are rather broad, and the biggest focus on the program itself right now, and then I can go back a few steps if necessary to explain kind of what the thinking was at the time they put it on the ballot. But the way it works now is that we have a program where we have funding available to identify and select vacant residential buildings owned by the city that need some support to stabilize them so that they can be attractive for buyers to come along and take them through to full rehabs. So my day-to-day involves a lot of research and analysis, working with a great team of other individuals. I'll mention them by name because they do tremendous work. Zach Kassman works with me at the St. Louis Development Corporation as a program specialist here. And I had the pleasure of knowing him when he was a student at WashU. I didn't mention earlier, I was an adjunct instructor in the School of Social Work. And I met Zach when he was working as an MSW student. And long story short is that he had an interest in a lot of vacancy related issues and revitalization issues. And he is working with me now on this, where we do a lot of data analysis. We look at the conditions of a particular building itself, as well as the block conditions, the broader neighborhood conditions, the proximity to amenities and resources and transportation, whether the building is in the historic district. We put all those into this great rubric and do a quantitative analysis of what kind of a assigned number we can come up with for that particular building. And then we present that to a committee, 7 individuals who are basically appointed to provide feedback and advice to us, and then to make recommendations to the Land Reutilization Authority Board. So my day-to-day involves a lot of analysis, as well as getting out and visiting vacant buildings, looking around on the block, talking to people in the neighborhood, and then presenting all this information to a committee. The point there is that no 2 days are alike, certainly no 2 days in a row are alike, because one day I could be out there walking through a vacant building trying to avoid falling through the floors. And then later that same day, talking to an alderman about some of their priorities. And then later that evening, presenting to a committee of volunteers from different parts of town. And then talking eventually to people who we're trying to convince to buy these properties. So I get to have a lot of conversations, and the challenge, of course, is that I really got this program handed to me that was prepared and designed by ordinance, and then was able to work with a team of individuals. And I neglected to mention the second person on our 3-person team these days, Banjo Popula, who is a building inspector with the city of St. Louis. And he has the great knowledge and expertise of walking through and seeing buildings and knowing what the code is and how we need to stabilize a particular building so that it can get to the point of being closer to the code. But it's a fascinating mix of responsibilities, as well as diverse enough activities that I get to never get bored, really.
No, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I feel like I just learned a tremendous amount and had a little crash course of the whole program and what it is that you guys do. And I think you did a really good job of, highlighting something that I've seen a lot when we have these conversations. It's just that everyone's paths are kind of, snaking through the grass a little bit, and nothing's linear and nothing really ever goes the way that you think it's going to when the career starts out. And of course, being a native Detroiter, it always warms my heart to hear the community involvement stuff in Detroit didn't completely scare you out of it, and end up with a conversation where you got an MBA and now you work at some accounting firm or something like that. Before we wrap up the recording here, I wanted to see if there was anything you could share, a little fun fact about yourself or what you like to do in your spare time, or who's the Sean that people don't get to meet at community meetings and interesting conversations about land acquisition.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that the person you meet in this work is probably the same person I am almost all the time. That's really scary and sad, isn't it? But my personal interests often kind of leak into my work life, and my work life leaks into my personal interests. One fun fact I like to share is that my family loves to take vacations, and we will pack the kids in the car, and now they're old enough to be out of the house. But we used to pack them in the car and go on long road trips every year. And my wife and I had a plan to visit every state capital eventually, but various reasons we haven't gotten to all 50 yet. However, we do go to places where I can kind of sneak in some of my own professional interest in urban core communities. So we drive our kids through mostly the parts of town that most tour guides tell you not to go to. And so much so that when one of my sons was looking at colleges, we went on a college trip and happened to drive through an area that most people would consider scary or dangerous or whatever. And my two kids who were along for the ride were oohing and ahhing at some of these cool historic buildings that had half the building gone. They know, like I do, that doesn't mean that's necessarily the end of the road for those buildings. They still could have a new life. Other family trips I can tell you about it also, where we went and did visits to every co-op, grocery co-op in Minneapolis as part of the family vacation, and get pictures of the kids in front of each of these stores. So that's how much fun I am.
No, that's cool. I don't think that's that unique for people that do this kind of line of work. And I think regardless of whatever your degree title says, that's certainly the kind of activity that people who are a planner at heart absolutely are known for, and things like that. And I know that my wife can attest to similar things when we go on vacation and stuff like that. So thank you so much for sharing so much of your story with us today, Sean. I know we really appreciate it. I know the membership is really going to appreciate not just your perspective and your words of wisdom, but also getting to know a little bit more about PropNS, which is something that touches so much of our work. So thank you so much again. It's been really fantastic talking with you.
Thank you.